The first time I ever met Bill Walton was in Maui because he did the Maui Invitational. And I introduced myself to him and he goes, "Hi, Bill with two L's." And I'm like, "Okay, I'll roll with this. I'm Tom with one M." And he goes, "Tom, where are you from?" And I said, "South Bend." And he like went back and he goes, "Oh, worst day of my life." And I go, "Bill, I was there and I stormed the court."
Yeah. Welcome to Wait, What? Sports Biz Chat with DP and McGhee, a podcast where we take an often irreverent, sometimes cynical, and on occasion even a serious look at the business of sports. I'm your co-host, David Parro.
And I'm Tim McGhee.
Oh, we have a special show today. Not only do we have a great guest coming up to talk about an intriguing new sports revenue tool, but we've loaded up another DP and McGhee Top 10. This time, our Top 10 sports venue. So lots to get to. So I guess we should just get going. Tim, what's on your mind?
Well, it seems to be a timely topic every week, but FIFA continues to be in the news. There's been several developments since we talked last week. One story that I think bears watching is that apparently FIFA, which made $15 billion in revenue from the recently completed World Cup, has, at least to date, stiffed 11 of the host cities out of $1 million each. I don't know, the parallels between Infantino and somebody else just continue to grow seemingly by the week. FIFA then, speaking of Infantino, FIFA had an internal vote, and much like Vladimir Putin's performance in Russian elections, Infantino got a unanimous seal of approval from the FIFA executive board. But that doesn't really mean anything because he's standing for re-election early in 2027. And the confederations, CONCACAF, UEFA, and now the Asian Confederation,
AFC, yep.
CONMEBOL, South America, all seem to be saying he needs to go. So he can get a unanimous vote of confidence from his board. That is not going to be what saves him. So it'll be interesting to watch. He just, I don't know, he's just stepped in it.
Yeah, he stepped in it. That's a great way to put it. It's almost bizarre because all of the things he's doing to assuage the problems he's having seem to be doing nothing more than fanning the flame of the problem he has. These reported or supposed kind of secret granting to Morocco the final game in the next Men's World Cup. Now, he's denied that happened, but we will see. And Morocco, of course, one of the countries that very quickly came out and supported Infantino. And then going out and seeking support from those that he already knows are going to support him, instead of reaching out to those people that obviously don't. Now, UEFA may be too far gone for him, right? And they're obviously now threatening along, I think, with AFC and CONCACAF, threatening to do some of their own things. That's a bad sign for global football, obviously. We talked about it last week. There were multiple other things he could have done. If he could have taken his time on this process, maybe actually drummed up some support. He could have never brought it up. And as you pointed out, just say, this was great, best World Cup ever, take his victory lap, focus on Brazil Women's World Cup next year, and go off as someone that nobody was going to question anything. But he didn't want that. He wanted something more. He wants more power. That's pretty clear. And it just seems every step he makes is doing nothing to solve the problem that he has right now.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see it play out. I don't want to say I was wrong, but we talked during the WNBA labor discussions. I said something to the effect of I don't see how Kathy Engelbert survives this. Well, she has survived it. So I don't want to go out on any sort of limb when it comes to Infantino's re-election next year.
Yeah, I think what'll be interesting is he holding any card that we don't see right now?
Quite possibly.
He got the support of the aforereferenced president. But I'm like, what does that do right now?
Talk about being damned with faint praise, as the saying goes.
So, yeah, it just seems interesting. I mean, we could talk about this later in the show, perhaps, but Kathy Engelbert still got her work cut out for her, man.
Well,
And I think so does.
it's not getting any easier for her.
No, it's not. So, soccer continues to be in the news. It absolutely is front and center still in the sports biz chatter. Another sport that has been another property that's been somewhat controversial, and who's controlled it has been Live Golf, and we've had multiple conversations about Scott O'Neill's tenure in charge of this. Have generally been very supportive of him being the right guy. In advance of their Bedminster, New Jersey event this past weekend, he announced that they had a signed agreement with a backer. Now, they haven't officially revealed who it is. It is expected to be a company called BC Partners, which does both credit and private equity, and that they are financed through 2030. Now, that would be a great sign for Liv. It doesn't mean that the market is still particularly interested in them, but it would allow them to re-sign some of these athletes that are going to be coming up, and allow them to have at least one more tournament. The season-ending competition has already been canceled, so they have one coming up in Indianapolis. The most interesting thing I found about this Bedminster event this past weekend was not that the president was there, because he will go to any event at one of his properties, or that Gary Player was there, and I guess Gary Player has thrown his hat in to Live. I did not know that before, but that Yasser Al-Ramayan, who had been the governor over golf for Saudi's public investment fund, was on site. I've been racking my brain trying to think of why he was there, other than to see if maybe a minority interest could be there from an ownership standpoint. If it's gotten itself together, one final pitch from Scott, I don't know, but wanted to chat with you about that.
Is it possible that when he got the news that Liv had found another investor, that it made him rethink, not footing the entire bill, but say, maybe this thing is viable. Maybe there is an opportunity for us with a little longer investment horizon to make some of our money back?
I think that's is certainly a very good potential theory, and it could make some sense. Obviously, money follows money, right? But the Saudis are extremely savvy when it comes to this stuff. So they certainly knew his presence there was going to be big. Now, you'll also recall that when Piff had what we thought was a deal with Jay Monahan and the PGA Tour, he was going to be a major player on the tour. And then the Strategic Sports Group came back in, which was primarily Fenway, and basically took it over and provided the funding necessary, and Piff kind of went away. So that had to rankle at least. But that was prior to them announcing that they were pulling funding from Liv.
So President Trump claims to have won the club championship at Bedminster for the umpteenth time, and claims to have shot a 70. Not sure when Riverside upgraded its functionality, but you can actually smell the bullshit in that claim. So just by means of comparison, John Rahm, who's 13th in the world rankings, finished tied for 41st at Bedminster this past weekend with a score 8 over par. His rounds were 72, 71, right, 73, and 76. And number one, you have to believe the pin placements were a little bit more difficult than they are when members play. So if you think...
And the tee locations, obviously.
Right. But even so, I call BS. And if you believe that Trump shot a 70, I've got a wall along the Mexican border I'd like to sell you.
Well, Rick Riley, who I used to love as a columnist in SI, didn't like him as much when he went on TV and went to ESPN. But he has a book that was, I'm sure, a bestseller about Trump's escapades on the golf course. Normally, that would be a net score. But apparently it was claiming to be both gross and net, which, I could almost get it being net, because he is a good golfer. I'm not going to – he is a decent golfer.
For an 80-year-old man, he's a good golfer. He's not shooting a 70.
But how the F – I normally would just say it, but I don't know why I'm being cautious. Do you have a full-out club championship, senior or otherwise, club championship, the weekend before a professional golf tournament? Don't don't golf tournaments usually like shut down for a while in preparation of a professional golf tournament? Am I imagining that?
Well, theoretically, I guess they could, because he does own the course and he is the president of the United States. They could have let him play. Has more pull than the average member.
But that seems like an odd time to run. It's not, I get it that you run a pro-am maybe before, because that's part of the marketing scheme, but for the club to be opened to a club championship when they're setting it up for a professional tournament, I don't know. Yeah. Maybe I'm... Anyone out there that's more in the golf business than I am, I suppose, tell me I'm full of shit and that it happens all the time. But
I certainly think you have every right to be skeptical. How's that for diplomatic?
Yeah.
What do you say? You want to get to our list?
Let's do it. I'm so excited about this. I'm so happy that you wanted to go back to a top 10 list. And I think this is a good first one to do post our movie. A very controversial top 10 movie list. But yeah.
Controversial only in the sense that there was a lot of people pushing back, and I admittedly forgot some things that I wish I hadn't. This list, I could not care less if somebody disagrees with my list, because this list is so personal in terms of how I went about selecting my top 10 venues.
Yeah. I caught the most shit last time about my top 10 movie list because I not only didn't have Miracle on it, I said that I didn't think Miracle was that good of a movie, and a lot of people gave me shit about that.
Well, you're lucky we continue to work together after that, quite frankly.
Yeah, you were one of them. You were the main one.
All right, so you want to give us, we'll count down, you'll give us 10 through 6?
Yeah, and then maybe at the end we can do a couple honorable mention. I think we did honorable mention last time. Like you, this is very personal, and I base this list on the experience for me, just the overall experience. And I'm going to butcher a Maya Angelou quote here, but I like quoting Maya Angelou because, I would hope you would know, she was a professor at Wake Forest. I may forget what I actually saw, but I don't forget how I felt. It's a butchering of her quote. And that's how I base this on, like the recollection of being there and the feeling that it created. All right. I will admit this is lame to start my number 10 with a tie, but I'm going Big Ten football country. If you force me, I'll make a decision. But I'm going Big Ten football country in a tie between Iowa's Kinnick Stadium and the Big House Michigan Stadium on the campus of the University of Michigan. Both unbelievable atmospheres. Kinnick Stadium is particularly amazing because of what their fourth quarter tradition of doing the Hawkeye wave to the Children's Hospital patients. That's just amazing to me and gets me every time I was either there or watching it on television.
Two great choices. I would let us remind or tell our viewer or listeners that we have to have personally experienced these venues.
Yes.
We can't say a stadium that we love if we haven't been there.
Yeah, I got to see Wake Forest get their asses handed to them at the Big House. Number 9, I wanted to put a motorsports venue. I've done, as you know, a lot of motorsports marketing in my life, and I looked at F1, I looked at NASCAR heavily, but when it came down to it, the venue that to me is just one of the most unique things I've ever been to, and I've had the good fortune to be there a fair number of times, is Indianapolis Motor Speedway, host, of course, of the Indy 500 and the Brickyard 400. Number 8, going back to college football, Notre Dame Stadium. I spent a good amount of my life hating on Notre Dame, which will be funny when our guest comes in later. But and I've seen 2 games there, and they've lost both, which in the time I was happy about. But the experience is just unbelievable. Actually, I've been there 3 times, and I saw them beat Wake Forest. But it's just an incredible place. Everything that you always kind of grew up watching, those classic matchups in South Bend. Number 7, not because it's the most aesthetically gorgeous, but for its importance and for the way it just delivers, the fans deliver every time, be it a hockey game or an NBA game, and that's Madison Square Garden, the most famous arena in the world. And number 6, I thought about a couple different golf venues, and I've been fortunate to be able to play at some great ones, TPC Sawgrass, Torrey Pines, Pebble Beach. And I decided that I couldn't put any of those on because any course that would actually allow me to play on them does not deserve to be on this. So I'm going with Augusta National. I've only been there once. I hope to be able to do it again. It's as magic, maybe more magical in person than it is on television. So that's my top 5.
At the end of the day, you're going to have 50 venues that you've mentioned. Way to circumvent the rules, buddy. Okay, here's my number 10. Totally sort of nostalgic / personal / I don't know what the word is, but my choice for number 10 is the Nassau Coliseum. An
Awesome.
absolutely hideous building aesthetically, but I remember things like one as a kid going with my friends. There was, we lived about 4 or 5 miles away, and it was one of those things. My mom will drop us off if yours will pick us up, and so they would drop us off across the street, and we'd cross Hempstead Turnpike. I saw the last ever ABA game there, where the Nets defeated the Denver Nuggets. But when people ask me my favorite sports experience since being in the business, my son was 10 years old and went out on center ice with Darryl Strawberry to drop the ceremonial first puck as part of Autism Awareness Night. And Darryl Strawberry can do no wrong in my book. First of all, he got a standing ovation because he's still a hero in New York circles. They introduced my son. They dropped the puck. As they were coming off the ice, they gave Darryl Strawberry a standing ovation, and my son came off and he said, was that for me, Dad? And I said, yeah, Tom, it was for you. But then Darryl Strawberry quickly followed my son off the ice, took the Islander jersey that they had given him off his back, signed it, and gave it to my son. It was a sort of a Joe Green type moment.
Yeah,
and
awesome.
I'm choking up now just thinking about it.
Wow.
That's number 10. Number 9, you and I not only picked several of the same venues, I picked it in the same place, Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Just pure racing magic. And, you hear about the size and scope of it, but until you actually go there and you see the small golf course in the infield, I mean, it's just unbelievable. Number 8, if I choke on this, please forgive me, but I do think it belongs in the pantheon of sports venues, which is Fenway Park.
Oh, nice pronunciation there.
I've been fortunate to see a number of games there, and it's iconic. And if you get a tie, I get a tie, because then I'm going to put Wrigley Field in with the same thing. Yeah. I know that's going to be in your top 5. It's got to be. Anyway, so those two. Number 7, purely for aesthetic reasons, I believe it's a Taj Mahal of sports venues, and it's even been outdone since it's been built. But AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas is. From the moment you walk out of your car and you see this building, just it's truly beautiful, and the light coming through the end zones. It's a great venue.
Spoiler alert! I had that on my honorable mention. I didn't put it in, but I agree with you. It's a fantastic stadium, and I hate the Cowboys.
And number 6, again, one I have in common with you, Madison Square Garden. The world's most famous arena. I remember going there as a little kid, and been there several times since for circuses and Ranger games and Knick games and St. John's games and college basketball and Big East tournament and circus and family shows and everything. It's just, I think it does over 300 dates a year. It's unbelievable, or 300 events, because sometimes it does double duty.
My daughter Jessica was at Marquette, went to Marquette. She cheered all 4 years, and I came out every year to see the Big East tournament and to see her on that court, as famous it is, and with all its history. It was really a remarkable
Very cool
thing to be able to enjoy. All right, great bottom 5 there. Okay, my number 5 is another New York venue, one that I have been fortunate to go to quite a bit and seen some of the all-time greatest players ever to play the sport of tennis, and that's Arthur Ashe Stadium at the U.S. Tennis Center in Queens. One of my favorite places to hang out. I will never miss an opportunity to go out there and catch that. I love that it's a uniquely New York event while also being a completely global event. And the brand activations there are second to none. I had at number 4, Fenway. Same feeling as you. I think it's an absolutely remarkable place. Goofy. Sightlines can be really dumb, but crazy outfield wall, the green monster. both its history and then even today, it's still, and the surrounding area, just really, really special. Number 3, and I know you've been to this one. I'm curious as to whether or not you have it on, but it also is the home court of the rival of the team you pull for, and that at number 3 is Cameron Indoor Stadium on the campus of Duke University. I haven't been there that much, although when I worked at the ACC, I did get to go a few times. I'd be great to get back in the more recent times, but just an incredible fan experience. A small little venue that just like rocks like you can't believe. Number 2, there are 2 things that come out of little industrial blue-collar town in the western part of England, and that is Liverpool, being, of course, the Beatles and Liverpool Football Club. And the home pitch for the Reds is a place called Anfield. I don't care what Premier League team you pull for or whether you don't even like the sport, go to it if you have an opportunity. I mean, listen, and every one of these top European clubs have great traditions. The singing of You'll Never Walk Alone by Jerry and the Pacemakers and the way the crowd pulls together for it is absolute magic. Absolute magic. It was one of the most, I've only been there once, and it was one of the most special times. And at number 1, and this wasn't that much of a question. Anfield was I felt was a clear number 2. But of all of these places I have, none have I been to more than Wrigley Field. It remains my happy place. I've seen a World Series game there. I've seen playoff games there. I've seen countless opening days, and I would go there at any point to be in and around that area. And even with all the changes, it's still just so magical to me. And this was an easy one. It's the greatest, and I do love Fenway. I actually don't even mind the new Yankee Stadium. But to me, they're not even close. So Wrigley is my clear number 1.
I was not surprised to hear that. Some great choices in there. Stamford Bridge almost made my list, but it just something had to give. So here's my top 5. Number 5, the Rose Bowl. And I've only been there once, but it was for what is considered by many to be the best college football game ever, where the Vince Young led Texas Longhorns beat the Matt Leinart, Reggie Bush, Lendell White USC. But just a phenomenal experience. One of the, when people ask me, can you ever stop thinking about, that you're in the sports industry? That was one of 2 times where I was able to just enjoy a game for the game and not worry about what promotions are going on and signage and activation and everything else. Number 4, Augusta National. Been to several Masters tournaments there, and actually got to play the course once. You didn't know that?
I did know that. I think I do. I recall that now. Yeah, you've told me that before.
And so
I gave you probably the same reaction I gave you then.
Somebody said, well, you can cross that off your bucket list. And I said, that was never even a consideration for the bucket list. It was not something that I ever expected to do. But, you have to play with a member, and I remember they gave me the honors because I was the one member of the group that had not played Augusta before, and I teed off first. And I hit a pretty good drive down the middle of the fairway, and I turned to the member and I said, you know what I was thinking? He said, what's that? I said, you only get to tee off for the first time at Augusta once. Don't F it up. And that was literally what was going through my head. So that is number 4. Number 3. Lina Rink, the home of Big Red Hockey. If you want to see an incredible environment for hockey, you get up to watch Cornell against Harvard or in the ECAC tournament, or even against teams like Quinnipiac and Princeton. Just a fantastic place to watch college hockey, or any college sport for that matter. Number 2, Yankee Stadium. Was fortunate enough to go to all 3. I mentioned that there were only 2 times in my career where I was able to forget that I was in the sports industry watching a game. The other time was Game 7 of the 2003 ALCS, where Aaron Boone was given the same middle name as Bucky Dent by Red Sox fans. And number 1, again, not an aesthetically pleasing building, but I had to go with the place where it all began. The first time I ever went to a professional sports game was Shea Stadium.
Yeah, all right.
1970 as a kid, and remember walking through the vomitorium For those of you who don't know, the vomitorium is the opening that goes from the concourse out into the seating area. Little trivia for you. And just being amazed at how green the grass was. So
Yeah.
New York Mets against the Montreal Expos. So that's my list. You got some, you said you had some.
Real quick on that. I want to say, like, one of the things about Wrigley, the first time I went was I had just moved to Chicago, and it was the Cubs were hosting the Mets. And I had that same feeling I experienced because I had grown up watching baseball at Veterans Stadium in Philadelphia, AstroTurf field. So I literally felt like it was the Wizard of Oz. My quick honorable mentions that I had Lane Stadium at Virginia Tech, one of the most beautiful venues. I mentioned AT&T Stadium. I had Rose Bowl on my honorable mention. Camden Yards I had on my honorable mention. Bristol Motor Speedway and Monza, the F1 track outside of Milan in Italy.
Yeah, I didn't have as many on my honorable mention list. I did mention Stamford Bridge. Cameron Indoor Stadium would have been on that list. And although I didn't see a game in there, so that's why I didn't put it on, but I was inside Carmichael Auditorium on the campus of UNC. But that was fun, partner.
Great list. That was awesome. All right, let's take a break. We have a guest ready to join us. We will be right back.
It's time for our guest.
It's no secret that college athletics are in need of increasing amounts of money to successfully operate within the current environment. One of the more intriguing ideas that we've seen recently comes from TKN Sports, and we're thrilled to have Tom Valdiserri, the CEO of TKN, with us today to discuss the platform as well as provide us with some insights from his impressive career. Full disclosure, Tom and I have been friends since the late 80s, if that's
30
even
years?
possible.
40 years.
When we shared a cubicle at legendary marketing services firm Frankel.
Yes.
After Frankel, Tom was named commissioner of the Continental Basketball Association, then had leadership stops at several of Chicago's other great agencies, the Marketing Store, and then Kemper Sports Live, where he served as EVP and managing director before taking on his current role with TKN Sports. Tom, welcome to Wait, What?
Thank you, David. Thank you, Tim. Tim, great to meet you. David, as always, awesome to see you. Yeah. One of my favorite people of all time, and I don't throw bouquets, so I appreciate that.
I'll vouch for him. He definitely doesn't. So yeah, I will take that and say thank you. All right, let's get started. Turn fandom into revenue. That's kind of the tagline of TKN Sports.
Yes.
Where you recently became CEO, as I just mentioned. Explain the underlying premise of the platform and what that tagline means, but importantly, tell it to us as if we're 5 years old, because basically that's kind of how we act generally anyway. So
I'm doing that again with you. Yeah. So thank you, David. Appreciate that. Yeah. The premise, actually, there's two. One you just talked about right at the outset here, and that is, schools needing more revenue. And, they've got a lot of sources of revenue from sponsorships and ticket sales and merch and concessions and radio rights and all those kind of things. But they need more and more of it now because of the changes in the college landscape over the last 5-6 years, right? First, it was portal, followed very shortly by NIL. And then last summer, the House settlement, which, basically established a moving salary cap over the next 8-9 years from now. So because of that, they need more revenue. They need to keep their players, and they need to get more out of the portals to stay competitive in the landscape. The second part of this is fans want to be more engaged. And I in talking to a lot of schools over the last, 2-3 months, 24 or so, some of them will admit that they're not good at that fan communication engagement. They do a lot of pushing. They'll send out emails, buy this, sign up for your tickets, get our new shirt, whatever it may be. But there's really not a lot of two-way communication and with the schools and the fans, or a real good place for fans to communicate, tell their stories, and share their experience with each other. TKN solves both of those. So the fandom is what powers the revenue here. Essentially what we've done is we've turned the playing field surfaces, we'll start with football and basketball, into digital real estate that fans can own. And what that means is we're doing it by 1 square foot. We're calling them tiles or tokens. there's football field, there's 57,600 of those. Basketball court, there's 4,700 of those, right? So a fan makes a donation to their school, and based on the level of that, they can select, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different tiles on the playing surface. And what happens is those are in zones on the field or court. And whenever a play happens in a zone where they own a tile, they earn points. And that play can be anything. It's basically taking the play-by-play sheet as it runs during a game live. So it can be a pass, a fumble, a kick, a block punt, a sack. In basketball, a dunk, a missed shot, an assist, a turnover. Anything that is recorded as a statistic really becomes a play in that zone where they earn points. The second way they earn points on this platform, and by the way, this is integrated into their sports app, their athletics app, or their website. So it is mobile. There is a mobile app for it. And you see all of this on your screen when you're participating in this, including the field. The field lights up where a play happens. You see your points tally on the leaderboard. And then over on the side, there's a couple of tabs, and this is where fans can have a lot of fun and engagement. There's one called chat, and that can be, they can post comments, videos, pictures, all of which is moderated, so none of the junk gets through, the bad things that get through that fans can do. And then another tab is for polls, surveys, or time-sensitive trivia questions related to that school. So when they participate in that social side of it, they also earn bonus points that accumulate along with the points they earn on the field. Those points are then redeemed for rewards. Those rewards fall into two categories. One is your typical, gift card type rewards, whether it's Starbucks, Uber Eats, Grubhub, Target, McDonald's, Sephora, any of those kind of brands. And the secondary level, which are going to cost you more points to earn those rewards, are things that the schools provide and things that they already have. So autographed balls, game-worn jerseys, tickets to a game, a pass to the sideline during a football game, a seat on the bench. And one interesting thing that comes up during this is we've gotten schools to brainstorm during these conversations. And I ask a question I already know the answer to, and that is, do you charter to your away games? And inevitably, the AD or whoever we're talking to stops and said, "Oh my God, we don't fill all those seats, do we?" And I said, "Of course you don't. But now you can, and people can earn points to fly with the team. A seat on the plane, a ticket to the game, a hotel room, all those kind of things can be packaged together with points. And, those become the real experiential rewards that people, I would say, of our generation and maybe a little younger, are more apt to redeem for than a $5, $10 gift card to a retailer or a restaurant. So that's really, in a nutshell, what the program is. But the couple cool things about it beyond the social aspect, which we're really excited about, is that fans own those tiles for a year, for the season. So the academic year, really. So they can engage before games, during games, after games, in the off season. And that's up to the schools to provide maybe exclusive content for those fans during the off season to keep them engaged. And once that time period's up, all those tiles go back into the general, pool, unless you finish in the top 5, 10 on the leaderboard at the end of the year, and you get a right of first refusal to retain those that you had that year into the previous year, so long as you continue to contribute and donate to the school and acquire those. So that's just in a nutshell.
Yeah.
We did run a live test of it during a certain basketball tournament that was a closed loop test among family and friends, and we had ages 18 to 60 plus, and we found that the younger audience were all over the gift cards, and the older people, like me, wanted to have that shirt or, walk on the field at the stadium or sit on the sidelines during a game or something like that. It truly reaches the full breadth of the fan base.
Great. So you said you've spoken to a couple dozen schools since you've taken on this role. When you find yourself sitting in front of an athletic director or whoever the decision maker happens to be, what are the top 2, 3, 4 reasons to believe?
Well, first of all, Tim, thanks for the question. By the pricing of the tiles on a football field, like I said, there's 57,600. We are working with the schools to customize the pricing for them. If we took an average price of, $50 or $100 a square, and they're selling 40,000 of those, I mean, you're getting to $4 million, of which the schools retained 70%. That's no cheap change there. On a football field, that's a couple of players, 3, 4, 5 players, depending on who the school is. On basketball, because the sheer size of the football field compared to basketball, there's 4,700. Your revenue, we estimate, can be anywhere from 150 to 450. Again, they keep 70% of that. So the revenue is key. Second to that is it's frictionless for them. All we need from the schools are marks, logos, mascots, colors, those kind of things, photos, and then we can design it with their approval. From there, we run the whole thing. We manage the upkeep of it. We manage the updating of it. We do the signups. We collect the money through, credit card, Google Pay, Apple Pay, whatever it may be. And then we just wire transfer the money to the schools, their share of it on a weekly basis to whatever account they want it to go to. And all we ask them to do then is promote it. So email campaigns, social campaigns. If they're targeting this revenue to go to NIL, then the athletes become involved in terms of them pushing it on their social channels, and then the revenue gets directed to those athletes. So really the revenue can be used any way they want. A lot of schools, as you know, that the House settlement has basically created a salary cap, a pay for play. A lot of them don't like the terminology, but let's just call it what it is, right? So, and that this year is a little over 21 million. There's a lot of schools that can't get anywhere near that 21 million. But if we can drive another 1, 2, 3, 4 million to them, that's going to help them in a big way. And again, it's very little involvement on a day-to-day basis from their standpoint. So bandwidth, we've heard that. We've answered that question. I think a part of it right now is the newness of something like this. A couple of ADs and a few conferences that we've talked to said, nobody's doing this. And we said, right. So patent pending, that's in process, trademarking, all that's happening. And then somebody else said, nobody's ever been able to really create, fantasy for basketball. This in a way is that. And so, you could look at it as a fantasy rewards program, really.
It's a nice segue into the next question I wanted to ask, but a real quick follow-up on that. Does it, sure, in your mind, is this opening up the door to basically a whole new population of potential donors that aren't normally giving in that way?
All right, I know you guys give each other kudos for when the guest says great question. So Tim, you owe Dave one. David, actually, yes, it is, because you think about it, the vast majority of donors and major donors are baby boomers, right? They are, and I'm at the tail end of that baby boomer, by the way. So they're getting up there in age, and so this is really targeting the 18 to 44-year-old. And as I like to tell these, the schools and conferences and whoever we've talked to is, look, get them while they're young, get them in now, get them engaged socially with you in a two-way conversation with you and the schools. And by the way, while they're doing that, they're donating money to you. That gets them started. It's like, McDonald's created the Happy Meal years ago. You get families and their kids in young. Treat them right, great customer service, give them what they want, and they stay with you for life. So yes, in essence, this is a way for them to find and nurture future donors, which obviously is going to be huge in the next, 3-5 years.
The question I was going to go to originally, because you talked about fantasy, is how close does this get to sports betting? In the traditional sense, not prediction markets or anything like that, but sports betting. And are you purposefully staying on a certain side of that line?
Yeah, we're not going down the path of sports betting, Dave. And as I mentioned, it is a rewards program, not dissimilar to what United Airlines has in their Mileage Plus, or Starbucks has, or Target has. All these brands have reward.
Hey, Tim, Tommy's mentioning every client the two of us have worked together on in our entire life, it seems to me.
This is true. I'll throw in a few more for you. But
let's do it.
Back in the day, we worked on some great brands, didn't we?
Yes.
And it's the thing about this is that you don't lose. You don't lose money. You're making a donation and you're accumulating points. So you can't lose here. There's no risk in this scenario. Even if I have, 10 points, 20 points, I can redeem for something. And in a given game, if you think about the number of plays that happen in a football game, let's just say college for this instance, we also have met with several NFL teams, and that's a different use of the money on the pro level than it is college. It's not for salaries necessarily, but there's no risk to them. They're not risking something of value. They're making a donation, and they earn points to claim rewards, right? And they also earn points for engaging in the platform. So the social side of it, which is comments, videos, answering trivia and things of that nature. And the cool thing about some of the trivia is, no team, college or pro, has any shortage of trivia questions. They all have interns who will dig those up and send them to us, and we'll post them. But the key thing on the trivia is those will be time sensitive. It's targeted to TV timeouts. When everybody is like, okay, what do I do now? There's, and when you're at a game, particularly college football, those timeouts can be quite long. So whether you're in the stadium or at home, we'll post a trivia question, what are the top 3, passing yardage leaders in Tennessee football history? And, we'll take the first 2 or 3 that answer that within the time period of that commercial break. And then they win something extra, and that can come from the school or can be in the form of points as well. So yeah, we've not really had anybody even concern themselves that this might be betting. One school said it's adjacent to, and I was like, okay, so that means it's not. And I agree with you. And and his next comment was, but if another school does it, we'll jump in. We're in. So yeah, so I appreciate that question, but it's one thing that, we ourselves have asked ourselves over and over and have sought outside, counsel on that. And it's not meeting the criteria of what would be legal gambling.
Quick follow-up to that before I ask my next question,
Sure.
Tom. Depending on where the donation is directed, is this potentially a tax-deductible contribution by the
It can
donor?
be, Tim. What we've heard is, if you acquire, you donate and you acquire a tile and it costs you $100 and you redeem that, for $10 in gift cards, the delta there is what you can write off.
Okay. All right. You mentioned some brands. How can brands get involved with this?
It's very sponsor friendly. Every school is looking for new sponsors, and some have said, we've got a few that are on the edge that we've been trying to get them over, and this may be the trick. The thing that we found, and I found this in running the Maui Invitational for 17 years, is the vast majority of sponsors, particularly in the college space, it seems like, want to use it for the media. I get so many units in a game, I get so many, courtside signage, but they're not really activating it. This is really a way for them to activate their sponsorship, in that a sponsor can, put their name on the zones. And in that case, they own all the tiles in that zone and can use those in sweepstakes, promotions, giveaways, buy one, get one kind of promotions. And that's essentially driving business back to them. And they can sponsor anything on the platform. So one school told us they have Hyundai on the football field. We said, great, we'll put them on here as well. And if Hyundai wants to do some sort of a test drive promotion, they can be involved in this as well. So what we've done, the beauty of this is where these rewards come from. And this is really key. I worked with several gentlemen when I was at the marketing store, and we worked on the My Coke Rewards program so many years ago. And I was the account guy that was going out and finding all the partners for My Coke Rewards. Josh and Jeff, who now own a company called Neo Currency for the last 10 years, they were the ones that figured out how you took those points and redeemed them for the Coke Rewards. So they started this agency 10 years ago. And in that 10 years, they've got about 1,000 brands in their ecosystem. They're a global agent. They operate globally. They work directly with brands on, incentive programs and digital rewards programs. And we asked them, show us the top 20, 25 brands that 18 to 44-year-olds have redeemed over the last 10 years. And boom, they popped them up. And so that's where the rewards come from. Now, if one of them is Starbucks, let's say, but a school has the local Dunkin' franchise as a sponsor, we will eliminate Target from our Starbucks from that field of play, that school. We will protect their sponsorship rights. Another way is in that chat area. That could easily be called the AT&T chat or the Samsung Galaxy chat or something like that. So they can own or present various components in the platform. And, given the recent news in the last couple of weeks, just on the jersey sale, jersey patch, what a great compliment to the jersey patch. A lot of these schools, my alma mater being one, will not put a logo on the field, but they certainly could on this platform.
Yeah.
with SoFi. So,
Yeah.
There's a lot of ways they can get involved, driving business back to them, protecting the local sponsors as well. If there's, David's Pizzeria and we've got, one of our rewards might be Pizza Hut, we will protect David's Pizzeria in that market. And that local restaurant then can provide the rewards and gift cards or, an appetizer with your meal or a dessert with your meal, whatever it may be. So, it's very, very, very sponsor friendly, and with an audience that's obviously highly desirable.
Thank you for all the background on TKN. It was fascinating stuff there. We want to talk a little broader about your overall career and some other interesting things you've done while we have you, because you've had that type of career. After you left Frankel, you became the commissioner of the CBA. I mean, you had your freaking name on the ball, man. That was so cool. I remember when you showed me one the first time.
I still have a couple of those.
And you followed Mark Lamping, who's another, legendary guy in the business. I don't know. Tell us a story about, something crazy that happened or one of the owners. And I do want to, full disclosure, we believe that Doug Logan, who is a past guest on the show, a fascinating past guest, by the way.
Totally fascinating.
He was one of the owners, I think, during your tenure.
Yes, he was. He was awesome. I mean, I love that guy.
So do we.
He's funny, great sense of humor. He was one of my biggest fans there while I was commissioner. And that all came about because when we were at Frankel together, we did work for the NBA, right? We did work around the All-Star game and doing we introduced Dorna, or now our ad time, which is now Dorna, and the courtside signage to the NBA. And the first teams that took that in were the Chicago Bulls and the Los Angeles Clippers at the time. So anyway, the way I got connected with that, I was at the McDonald's All-American Games in New York, and Rick Welts happened to be there, and we're chatting, and he said, "Hey, I may have an opportunity for you." And I said, "Really? What is it?" And he goes, "We'll be the president of properties at the Continental Basketball Association." So he goes, "You'd be my counterpart." And I go, "Really? It's probably just director of marketing, right?" President of properties, do they have any? So I got hired in that role, and my first meeting, actually, they added 4 teams to the league. They went from 12 to 16 in my first meeting. This is like the first day on the job. And Doug's team was one of those. And 4 months later, Lamping decides to leave and takes a job with the St. Louis Cardinals as president of the Cardinals. And they basically threw me out of the meeting, the owners, the 16, and said, "You got to leave." I went home, and we had just moved there 4 months ago, and to St. Louis, where we were headquartered. And I said to Shelley, I may or may not have a job tomorrow morning. And so I got a call at like 3 a.m, and it was the 5 owners who represented the exec committee. And they said, "You're the new commissioner." And I said, "Not so fast, my friend," to quote. So I said, "We got to talk about a lot of things." So it ended up working out, and it was a really interesting 2 years there. And some of the most interesting aspects of that job, David, were the player personnel side of it, something I knew nothing about. I mean, I was a marketing guy. I mean, you knew me coming in there. I sold wine for Gallo and tickets for the White Sox, and was a marketing guy at the agency side. So I didn't have a whole lot of experience in that, but it was fun, and I really enjoyed it. And we had one of those owners, I'll give you a story here, that was admitted into the league in that spring of '94. We come rolling in. We're about 3 weeks out from the tip-off of the season in November, and I get a call from this owner in Harrisburg, and he says, "I don't have a court." I'm like, "Wait, what?" Sorry to use the name of your show and that, but that's literally what I said. "What?" He goes, "Yeah, I don't have a court." And I go, "What are you planning on playing on?" He goes, "I think I'll have one tomorrow. I'll call you back." So he calls me the next day, and he goes, "Hey, we found a court." And I go, "Awesome. Where'd you get it?" And he goes, "It's a sport court." And I go, "Oh, no. You're not using some plastic snap together court to play in this league." And he goes, "Why not?" And I go, "Because you have to play on a wood, legit NBA dimension, legit court." And he goes, "Why do I have to do that?" And I go, "Because we play by the NBA rules. It's in the owner's manual, operations manual that you received at the meeting when you became an owner." He said, "I never got it." And I was like, "Man, okay." I said, "Well, you'll have it tomorrow. We're going to FedEx one to you and you'll have it." So we FedEx it. FedEx lets me know they got it, signed by his wife, the owner's wife, who happened to be the general manager, which I didn't know. And I'm going, "Okay, this is going to be really interesting." So I call him and I said, "You got it. You got to have the court." And so long story, I'll try to make this short, but it's pretty funny. We ended up finding him a court. We went out and bought it for him, but we had to draw down on a letter credit he had to post to become an owner, like $100,000 he had to post. I don't remember what the court cost, but they have 2 weeks to replenish their letter of credit, or the league by bylaws commence termination proceedings. So before the termination proceedings commenced, because he did not pay it back in time, I had to go to one of the games there, and it was at the Farm Show Arena in downtown Harrisburg. And I pull into the parking lot the day before the game because I had to see this arena. I had never seen it. And I could smell the manure in the parking lot. And I went, what's going on? So I walk in, and literally it's a building in the round, powdered black dirt in the middle where they were doing cattle wrestling and calf roping and all this other stuff. And the court was laid right down on that. And I need to see the opponent's locker room before we go any further. So they take me up there. There's 2 urinals, 1 toilet, and 1 shower stall with a pipe coming out of the wall with no head on it. So just a pipe for 12 grown men playing professional basketball. And I thought, okay, we got some issues here. So next day I'm all suited up at the time, that's what you did. Sitting courtside, and the opposing coach comes over and he says, "Hey, Mr. Commissioner, we need to have a meeting with the officials and the other coach before the game starts." I go, what do you got? And he goes, "Just call him over." So I call him over. And I said, what's the deal? And he goes, "Yeah, we want to go downhill in the second half." And I'm like, what? He says, "Put the ball at center court." The ref sets the ball at center court. It takes off to my right. And and I'm like, what is, and then I look up and I see the basket. And the little square above the rim? It's a masking tape parallelogram about 4 times the size that square is supposed to be. And then I look at the base of the basket, which, normal stanchion. It looked like something they bought at Dick's, like a gorilla goal, with feed bags holding it down. And, okay, so obviously this guy wasn't. So anyway.
Yeah.
We do the termination proceedings because he didn't pay back his letter of credit. And I thought, there's no way they're going to terminate this guy. They'll give him a break, because we got 16 teams, 8 in each conference, balanced schedule. 15-0 was the vote, out. And I'm like, why did you guys do this? And Doug goes, because we wanted his players in the dispersal draft. So that was 2 years of that kind of craziness going on in the CBA.
Wild.
But it was fun because I got to know David Stern fairly well, and it was a lot of fun getting to know him. And he was a really interesting guy, and a big fan of the leagues. I'm not so sure all the other owners were, but he was hoping for our success. And after I left, I think it ended up another commissioner came in, and I think he passed away on the job. Nothing to do with the job, by the way. And then it just went bankrupt and was over. And some of those teams got absorbed into what was then the NBDL and now the G League, right? Yeah. So pretty funny time.
I think you've got a book in there if you choose to.
Oh, it's written down, Tim. I've got pages of it right now. That and some other jobs.
But that might not even be your most interesting job. Tell our listeners about your experience with the Chicago White Sox, and they'll know in a second that you are truly an expert. So would love to hear your thoughts on whether the White Sox are for real this year.
No, I love them. I think they are. I saw what they played like in the early 80s when I joined that club as a marketing assistant, community relations, group sales, ticket sales, mascot. So yes,
Wait, what?
Yes, there were 2 mascots called Ribby and Rhubarb. I was Rhubarb. And much to my mother's chagrin, I got to be honest with you, when she heard that was happening, she said, 4-year degree at Notre Dame and you're a chicken. I said, no, that guy's in San Diego. And by the way, he makes a lot of money and I don't. So that was.
I have to tell you, when we booked you for this, it all kind of came back to me that you had played this, but I was racking my brain to say, what were their mascots? And obviously when you just said Ribby and Rhubarb,
the big purple one with the trunk, that was Ribby. I was Rhubarb, this thing with a massive head and a hat that spun around.
I got to tell you, Tom, I was a little bit nervous asking you the question because in David's pre-show notes to me, he said, Tom is finally ready to talk about his experience as a mascot. So I didn't know if you had PTSD, if you refused to talk about it, you had some sort of non-disclosure agreement with the club. So I was a little bit nervous asking that question. I have to be honest.
No, you know what, Tim? One of the funniest things, and there's several funny things that happened while I was in uniform, But one of the funnier things happened when I was in the CBA. Actually, I gotten to know obviously Eddie Einhorn and Jerry Reinsdorf, the two owners, fairly well. Eddie and my father Roger were really good friends and helped create basically national basketball on television, college basketball with the Notre Dame UCLA home and home on the same season. But anyway, I got to know Eddie and I called him one day because I was trying to figure out is this product I have CBA, is it worthy of TV? Should we be looking at TV? So we're about 15 minutes of the conversation, and Eddie goes, "Wait a minute, I just thought of something." And I go, "What's that?" He goes, "You're the first commissioner of a professional sports league to be a mascot." And I went, "Yeah, and I got you to thank for that. I appreciate it." Yeah. So
that's great.
Good man he was, for sure.
Yeah. We, earlier in the show, Tom, did our top 10 sports venues, the ones that we have been to and experienced and considered our top 10. We're not going to tell you necessarily what our top one was. But we're going to pose that question to you. What is your all-time, and I kind of have a sense what it might be, but what is your favorite sports venue?
Well, I'll leave Notre Dame Stadium out of it because I grew up inside that stadium basically for 30 years, going to almost every home game. And from a college football standpoint, it has to be Neyland Stadium in Tennessee. Just an outstanding environment when you've got the yachts, tailgating on the riverfront, the fans are out, the checkerboard end zone. But pro baseball, I'll give you this. My first game I ever saw, and they were first and second game were 5 days apart, were in Forbes Field in Pittsburgh.
Wow.
Which, as a 10-year-old or 9-year-old, 8, whatever I was around that time. And the funny thing is about the memories I have of being there are in black and white.
Yeah.
So it's kind of fitting, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say that. And then I'm a big fan of Camden, the Fog, in Assembly Hall, in college basketball. I'm a huge college basketball fan. Those three places are just, I think, unparalleled.
You had to have been in the Joyce Center then as a kid when Notre Dame snapped UCLA's 88-game winning streak?
I was, and I stormed the court with my older brother, Kenny. And the first time I ever met Bill Walton was in Maui because he did the Maui Invitational. And I introduced myself to him, and he goes, "Hi, Bill with 2 L's." And I'm like, "Okay, I'll roll with this. I'm Tom with 1 M." And he goes, "Tom, where are you from?" And I said, "South Bend." And he went back and he goes, "Oh, worst day of my life." And I go, "Bill, I was there, and I stormed the court."
Yeah. Well, that was a bad day because I grew up a UCLA fan. Tim is a huge Bill Walton fan because he's done a lot of work with him, on Naismith stuff and so forth. But yeah, your background on all this stuff is amazing. Just so you know, I actually had Notre Dame Stadium number 8 on my list. And interesting, the first game I went to at Notre Dame Stadium was against Tennessee when Peyton Manning was there, and Tennessee beat Notre Dame. You probably remember that.
Yes, I do.
Anyway, Notre Dame. You probably know this, Tom. Your father was like anyone coming up through the SID business of our generation. Your father was a hero of ours. We idolized him, rightfully so. He was amazing. A couple things. These are like myth, bullshit or not.
Yep.
One, did he tell Joe Theismann? Right, that's true, right?
Yes.
To change the pronunciation of his name from Theismann to Theismann.
Yes, he did.
Roger Valdiserri.
Yes.
The second one is the movie Rudy. Complete bullshit, right?
The story is true, but the Hollywood took creative liberties with a lot of it, including some of the scenery on this guy. First time I saw it, I was like, wait a minute, that's over at St. Mary's. That's not on Notre Dame's campus. So they did things, but generally the story is true.
Yeah, you told me once that they made Divine look way worse than he was, right?
He was not happy when that movie came out. Yeah.
One of my favorite parts about that movie, and as I ripped the movie for being somewhat like ridiculously, overly Notre Dame's type.
Yeah.
But there is a scene at the very end, and someone is coming on the field, a player, and the jersey says Valdiserri on the back. I always love that. Love that.
Number 31. It's hanging right here on my wall. My daughter's bought me a case, a closed case that you set it in. And at some point, I got to get Rudy Rudiger, or better yet, maybe the actors to sign it.
Yeah, Sean Astin gets.
But it's funny because I'll make this quick. I know you guys are up against the time. But I met Vince Vaughn in Honolulu in 2023 because we moved the Maui Invitational there because of the fires. And Vince is at the game with his 2 kids, a friend and his 2 kids. And I see them across court, and their kids are sitting on their laps, so they can't see. And so I walked over and introduced myself, and he was like, "Who the hell? What is going on?" I go, "Move over here. I'm going to move your seat so your kids can see." And then I got him wristbands to go to the VIP room, between games or whatever. And he comes in and he goes, "My man," the dude's huge. I didn't know he was like 6'5" or whatever he is. But anyway, I got his kids on the court during, sponsor promotions, a couple things we did, and his kids got in the court and he's out there taking pictures. And I asked his friend, I go, of all the movies Vince has been in, what's the one people ask him the most about? And he said, Rudy. Wow. Huh. Now, Vince is in that movie maybe 5 minutes tops, but he's in a great scene where he gets chewed out by Jason Miller, who played Ara Parsegian, on a practice field. It's pretty funny, actually. And I'd love to have Vince sign that, or Sean Astin or somebody, but anyway.
Okay, before we let you go, we have 2 questions we ask all our guests.
Okay.
The first one is, how'd you get your start in the sports industry?
It was with the White Sox, a guy named Steve Shanwald, who was the VP promotions for the White Sox. I actually had met him a year before in the summer in Pittsburgh. He was that same role with the Pirates, and we were at a game, and he came down and sat with my brother Kenny and I. And he said, what do you, I go, I'm getting out of school next year. I'm graduating. He goes, what do you want to do? And I go, well, I figure I'm sitting next to a guy in baseball. I want to be in baseball. So when he then moved over to the White Sox, I got in touch with him because he said, if I get in touch with me when you graduate. And he actually moved to the White Sox. And so I got in touch with him, and we met on St. Patrick's Day, downtown Chicago, in the Hancock building where their offices were. Hired me as a marketing assistant, kind of a gopher. And somehow he introduced me to Eddie and Jerry in his office and said, Tom has decided he would like to be one of the mascots. And I'm like, oh my God. Now, I had said it to Steve, if you need help, I can help you get it off the ground. But the next thing I knew, Tim, was I was in Midtown Manhattan in a warehouse being measured every piece, head to elbow to fingers. And I'm sitting there sweating going, I'm the freaking mascot for the White Sox. There's no way I'm getting out of this now.
That's a great story.
Yeah.
And the last one is, what one piece of advice would you give to a young person looking to break into the sports industry?
That's funny. I've heard a couple of your shows, and I love some of the answers.
So you're our listener. Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
And I did see the Doug Logan one as well. I used to I had a professor of mine that would invite me back to ND and talk to marketing club MBA students and they always want to know about sports marketing. And he said, save a half hour at the end because we want to do Q&A. And that was the question. How do I get into sports? Now, they didn't like my answer. Like, I would have I'd have ND alums come and be guests with me. Steve Lauletta, who I think you guys may have had on. He was
twice.
President Ganassi. Tony, forget his name. He was the CMO of Subway. Tony Pace.
Yep.
Tony Pace came, and they asked those guys that question, and it came to me, and I said, don't go sell something, because I can teach you sports, but if you've got it here to be a salesperson and you can be seen to drive revenue, you want to be on the revenue side of the ledger, not the expense side. So go sell something and then come talk to me. And quick, a kid raises his hand. He said, my parents didn't send me to Notre Dame to be a salesman. And I was like, oh, that's not good. I said, really? I go, have you dated anybody here? He goes, yeah. And I go, would you just yank her out of the dorm or out of the line at the cafeteria, or did you have to sell yourself? Have you given a presentation where you had to convince your classmates or the prof of a certain position you were taking? Yes, you did both of those. So you have already sold. Now go do it for money, and then let's talk. So that's basically my shtick.
That's great, Tom. Appreciate it. What a great discussion. Thanks for taking some time. Best of luck with everything TKN Sports related. Look forward to chatting with you again soon.
Yeah, thanks, David. I appreciate you bringing me on. And Tim, great to meet you. I hear some awesome things about you. I'm going to see your stand-up at some point. Well, get some pointers. I need some pointers from you also.
Thank you. Might have to wait a while to see that. Thank you again to Tom Valdiserri, CEO of TKN Sports. Great discussion, great stories. Really excited to see what he builds with that company. But now's the part of the show where we give shout-outs, look forward, make corrections. So, David, what do you got?
Quick shout-out, Tim Brosnan, someone that got mentioned on the show where we had Jim Small on, former top exec at Major League Baseball, is going to be the new commissioner of the Big East, following up a great tenure from Val Ackman, who I think did an incredible job of not only keeping that conference together, but really keeping their exceptionalism in basketball together. So good luck to Tim, someone I had worked with years ago when I was working on the United Airline business. We talked about it last weekend. I won't go into detail, but this WNBA situation needs to get under control. Leadership needs to really get together. The players need to get together, get some tensions down, and some of the circus that's surrounding it right now is really crazy. It's gotten even worse from when we talked about it last week. I'm not even going to spend time on the details here. We can talk about that maybe another time. The Clippers' aspiration Kawhi Leonard story continues to get weirder, and hopefully we'll see something soon from the league, a company that all of us in this business know because they're the leading scoreboard manufacturer. I don't know if in the world, certainly across U.S. sports. Daktronics apparently had another secret deal with Kawhi as well that is reportedly known to have been to circumvent the salary cap. So that has got to come to a head. Ted Lasso's back. I'm excited about seeing that. I didn't get to see him in the Hall of Fame game, but I hear that Mike Tomlin was awesome on NBC, and I'm looking forward to being able to start catching some football games and see what NBC's broadcast team is.
Great stuff. So a couple things that seems like I'm riding your coattails on, but that's okay. There are worse coattails to ride. You mentioned Anfield earlier. I'm looking at the investor group led by Jeff Bezos, which may be buying up to a third of Liverpool Football Club. Hopefully he doesn't do to that club what he's done to the Washington Post, but we will see. And then the WNBA, I'm keeping an eye on things. There is not only all this mishigas going on around the games and in the games, but now many of these teams are starting to sell into next year's season ticket holders, and fans are saying that they're hearing from the teams with season ticket prices going up as much as 50% for the same seat. Now, granted, there will be more teams, so there'll be about 13 to 14% more games next year, but I don't know if that justifies a nearly 50% increase in season tickets. So I'm looking at whether or not there's going to be backlash from longtime ticket holders. So many other things going on, but I think that's a good as place as any to stop. So once again, thanks to Tom Valdiserri. Thank you, David, for another great conversation. Most of all, thank you to you listeners. If you like what you hear, please comment, like, smash the follow button, subscribe. You can find us on any of your favorite podcast platforms. And if you ever need to find anything else about us, go to dpandmcgee.com. Until next week, he's DP, I'm McGhee, and we'll talk soon.